Hey, I am the creator of DateSpots.City, and this is the architectural tech-heavy overview of the site. This is not why the site is created, it's more about how the site is created and how the infrastructure and security works. Um, so, uh, a year ago, I created a small project called as DateSpots.NYC. Um, it worked very well. I did not think it would work that well, and I created it, I forgot about it, thought it was a one-hit wonder, and I started receiving emails until I actually checked by the end of last year. There were a whole bunch of emails on people reaching out to add certain locations in New York City, some live events happening, although that is not why the site was designed for. And there was one email that intrigued me. There was a guy called as Dan or DAAN. I don't know how to pronounce. It's a Dutch name. He was from Netherlands, and he asked me if I could create something like DateSpot NYC for Amsterdam. And it was brewing on top of my head how I could build uh, different cities but in a much central way that I don't have to manage so many different cities in different places, different domains, because that would be ridiculous to buy so many domains and practically go bankrupt in a way, just um, registering them. So I decided the next best thing, and this is what the architectural overview is about and how the site is built. But before that, I need to talk about how DateSpot NYC was built. And before you judge, it is not a great setup. It is a terrible way, but it worked. And I'll show you why it worked. So this is DateSpot City. It should be launching by June 30th. At least I'm hoping for officially launching and submitting sitemaps to Google and Bing. Um, Let's talk about DateSpot City. I mean, it's still running in the back end. It was hosted on an hosting provider called as DreamHost. Uh, so DreamHost is a pretty simple hosting company that will save and host your website. It's mainly for static stuff. I've rarely heard big companies use DreamHost. It's fine mainly for WordPress, and that's what DateSpots NYC was built on. The backend for it was WordPress. So I'll just add a small WordPress and just say WP. On top of it, there was a CDN layer, which is my favorite company out there. Cloud as Cloudflare. So Cloudflare provides a layer on top of everything you have as a CDN, security, caching, whole bunch of stuff they do. And the reason I had that was twofold. One was for security, obviously, and second was for caching. Mainly, they have multiple POPs across the globe. Um, this is what it looks like. This is an internal tool. This is not an internal tool. This is just like a vibe coded app that I scratched over the weekend. But look at the damn coverage Cloudflare has across the globe. It is abysmal, to be honest. But it's fantastic. Again, I'm a huge fan. This is not an advertising for Cloudflare, but I do work with them. And meet with them every week. But that is for security and hunting down bad guys on the internet. Anywho, so this is how the architecture was. First, all I did was created a table in WordPress, and it was very slow. Like each category on DateSpots NYC was just a single table. I was loading it. It was super slow, but I wanted to make it fancy. So I used something, a WordPress plugin called as Flex Table. Um, it made it look very pretty and something I would actually use. Like if I look at a table, would I actually use it? And the answer was yes. The pricing has changed. So when I bought it, I paid like $200 for unlimited. Now it's different. So yeah, the tables look extremely fancy. I liked the look and it worked. It worked fantastic until it didn't work. When I tested it, it was slow. It was so slow that it took 15 to 20 seconds just to load a single category, like single table on DateSpot NYC. That nobody's going to wait that long. I wouldn't wait for 5 seconds if a website doesn't load well. I mean, 5 seconds is still a stretch, but you get the point. So I was thinking, and this idea was actually given to me by ChatGPT, which is very rare for it to make good architectural infrastructure decisions. So what it suggested is I use the key value store of Cloudflare and use a worker on top of it. Cloudflare worker. So when a user hits Cloudflare, and when a user types in and goes to www.datesport.nyc, it will hit the Cloudflare worker. The Cloudflare worker will first check the key value store if the data for that category exists. If it does exist, it will give it back. It will read it from there and send it to the user directly. So the request is never actually made to the origin. And that was fantastic. Anyway, uh, so I'm still getting used to this whole tooling, so bear with me. If it didn't find it in key value store, it would hit the Google Sheets API. Google Sheets API. And so in my defense, it will still take 15 seconds to load, but only for the first user. So the first user was basically a scapegoat, but obviously it never got to that because I ran a job and loaded all the values, all the data in the key value store. So it will check if the data, it will take the data from the Google Sheets and then write it to key value store. So any next iteration, it will all come from the key value store. And this was basically the setup. And it worked fine. It worked great. So there was an issue. The site was mainly built for New York City, and it worked great for New York City because I ran Lambdas, AWS ran Lambdas in US East 1 and US West 2, IAD and Oregon for the data to be cached on the POPs, like Cloudflare POPs. Again, all of this is free. Like I was always flying under the free tier. It has never crossed. I have not paid a single cent for the site, except not even for the domain because a friend got me the domain. Anyway, so I started running Lambdas across the globe for different people who were visiting the site, not from NYC. It was all over the place, like Europe, Australia, Asia. I assume these people were actually visiting New York City and landed on my site through Google. So I started running these Lambdas twice a day, like morning and evening across the globe, from AWS, and that worked. So that was the overview of DateSpots.NYC. And then I realized I cannot use this. I cannot use WordPress. I cannot use Dreamhost. I cannot use how I'm saving all this data, because it would be a nightmare for me to build so many different cities, so many different architectures. I mean, replicate it obviously, but it's just not feasible. I would need to hire a team. And I went back to the drawing board. I had to basically like relearn and re-engineer everything that I had done till now. So DateSpot City has multiple cities. Each city has multiple categories, and some cities even have different languages, because mainly like the local language. Like Barcelona has Catala. I don't know how to pronounce that. The pronunciation is very different for different. I always thought Amsterdam speak Dutch, but that's an English conversion. I think it's just Netherlands. I do have a friend in Netherlands. I should probably reach out and ask, but that's the gist of it. Different cities each have their different category. And before I talk about the architecture, I still want to say all the data is still managed. Yes, still managed in Google Sheets. If you see these tabs, all this data is still in Google Sheet. This is an Amsterdam example. So before I start, I just want to clarify some stuff. There's something called as D1 in Cloudflare. This is just the database. Um, there's R2. This is storage, which is S3 equivalent. Then there is something called as worker workflow, which is not actually used like for the site, but it's like an internal used for internal tooling. What else am I? Yeah, pretty much it. I'm not actually using key value store for this site. How do I? So now the way the site is built, and the reason the way it's built is Iran. There's this huge war going on, and Iran sent a missile to one of the AWS data centers in UAE or Dubai. Again, I could be wrong, and their entire region is wiped out. I read some Reddit threads that they've lost the region and it's impossible to bring back the infrastructure. And I didn't want that to happen. Not that this project makes any money or um, any like it's not a huge thing in the larger scheme of things. Obviously, I'm sure there's much important sites running on the internet, but I wanted to make this reliable and like scalable and yeah, just available, high availability and whatnot. So I use Cloudflare Pages as the base for this project. So this entire project is based on Cloudflare, the whole thing from start to end. I have not done this at work. This is just me trying to read up and figuring out most of the stuff. So Cloudflare Pages host the HTML, CSS, and the core web app. That doesn't actually change that much. So that's that. On top of it, there is Cloudflare worker, one single worker doing most of the job. What I mean by that is this like nyc.datespots.city, la.datespots.city, Amsterdam.datespots.city. All the sites, all the cities is rendered from one single worker. So let me get this over here. So what happens is when a user comes and hits Cloudflare, just name it CF, user hits Cloudflare, Cloudflare um, sends the request to the worker. Obviously, the base stuff is rendered from the Pages app, right? You see all the cities and all that stuff, the images, everything. The like the core Apex homepage is coming from CF Pages, and when you click on one of the cities, the worker makes a call to D1. It checks for a version of that city and that category, basically the city. It reads the version like V1, V2, etc., and then takes that version data from R2 and gives it back to the user. There is a redundancy that if R2 goes down, the data is still stored in D1. So if R2 fails, D1 sends the data, but the odds of that are happening is like very low. So that is an extremely high level overview of it. Now, this is an internal tool that I built. Again, it's not open to the public. This is just for me. And I'll show you what I mean by what I just explained. So if I update something over here in Amsterdam, right? Let's make compact gallery space simple and quick. I'll just make this end to art galleries of gallery. So all I have to do is update city. It will open. Oh boy. It did run. And it's very fast. This is the Cloudflare workflow I was talking about, workflow. It makes the call to Google Sheet API, pulls all the data, writes it to D1, writes it to R2, bumps the version in D1 from 18 to 19, writes it to index now. And if we go to the site of Amsterdam art galleries and checked for gallery, it will you see this and over here. So that is how quick the data can be updated. I'm very impressed with how Cloudflare works, how fast it is. And this is the Pages app. This is the worker. Obviously, it has different routes. You can see Amsterdam, Berlin, whole bunch of cities, and yeah. So that is a brief overview of how things are. Like it is simple. It works very quickly. It's fast. Let's see. So the images are also stored in R2. The JSON. So the data is actually stored in a JSON format. Let me show that to you. It's nothing fancy. Storage, R2, overview. First two, like for DateSpot NYC, the data was stored in R2, in JSON format, but let me show you. It was in key value pair. So this is what the DateSpot NYC data looked like in JSON format. Now it's stored in R2, media, DateSpots.City, like Amsterdam. I think we just switched it to version 19. So this is This is it. There's obviously a manifest file, places, and these are the categories. So every single update um, bumps up the category, writes new JSON to it. The D1 is updated. Worker reads the D1 version and reads the R2 um, version from here. Uh, all this, all these requests are cached to save time and cost. Cloudflare does is extremely generous with how much it offers. Uh, yeah, I've never hit that cap, but I still cache so that it doesn't always make a request to the origin and it gets counted as, you know, how much operation in operations. So yeah, that's that. Uh, what else? The front end is on Astro. Pretty sure Cloudflare bought Astro a while ago. Cloudflare buys Astro. Yeah, it did acquired it. Yeah, Astro is very fast, so that's why I use it, and I decided to use Astro for the underlying base of pages. What else am I missing? So obviously walk through the architecture, sheets, images, middleware. Yeah, all the logic it's in the worker as a middleware. Even the city locale, all it is like a one switch, and it changes the names. For the SEO, it's one single file. All the SEO is for all cities is rendered from one single file for each city, like a hero label or meta description and all of that. Uh, Security, I've tried my do my best, like CSP and SQL injection, cross-site scripting, versioning, SEO, images, deploy. The repo is in GitHub and it deploys on every single push. So what I mean by that is these are the deployments. So every single push, these are the stuff I did today. It deploys a new one and it goes within less than 3 minutes. Pretty sure it's under a minute, but just trying to play it safe. But yeah, this whole web app is serverless. I hope it grows and becomes successful like DateSpots NYC. I have a bunch of stuff in making for a phase two, phase three. I do want to add new cities. Uh, there are some concerns for me, like some cities that are not safe in general for anyone. And I'm dwindling on the fact that if I should add it or no, because I cannot take responsibility for something that happens in a city that I don't even live in. So that's that. And these are some categories I do want to add, especially street fairs and farmers market was one of the high performing categories on DateSpots NYC, which is very interesting because I never thought street fairs and farmers market were sort of a date thing, but hey, whatever works for people. But yeah, that's about it.